Thank you, Deb. Welcome to Northbrae Community Church. Whoever you are, wherever you are welcome here. We are so thrilled to be back in the chapel. Let's still just take a moment to look around. Quick reminder of our color coding system. If you see a red dot on someone's name tag, they would prefer that you stay 6 feet away. If you see a yellow dot, they're a little more comfortable being near people. And if you see a green dot, the person might be ready for a hug. Reverend Christy Ramage will be leading our worship service next week. We hope you can attend this very special service. Options for Recovery houses over 100 clients. They're kicking off a home improvement campaign for their houses. They're asking for our help furnishing these homes. You can help them by donating items in good condition. The contact information for Porter Sexton to make a donation is available in the bulletin. If you are watching this on YouTube, congratulations for finding us. This is the first Sunday we are live on YouTube, and it has been quite a journey getting here. We felt we had to switch to make our services even better. We can do more with this platform. Now, I'm going to ask Rory, our media guru, to show the people at home a little bit of what can be done. First, Rory, could you please switch cameras? We have 2 cameras up here, one on me, one on the other lectern. So he can easily switch cameras back and forth by sitting in the back of the sanctuary. Now, Rory, could you please put the bulletin up on the screen? So now the people at home are seeing a page of the bulletin. And I know you, sitting in front of me, can't see this right now, but you can when you go home and go to our YouTube channel. Please remember to give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. If you ever have any comments about our services, especially on YouTube, please let one of us know, especially me. Let me know. The civics group meets tonight at 7 o'clock. The group will be discussing the Federalist Papers. Contact Diane McNinney for more information. The Sunday night book group is reading The Night Watchman by Louise Erdrich. Discussion will be August 8th at 7 o'clock, maybe on Zoom, maybe in person. The next movie night discussion is Wednesday, July 21st at 7 p.m. Please watch the film, The Education of Little Tree, on your own, and join us on Zoom. Details are on the website. The meditation group will meet tomorrow in the Sacred Hoop Garden at 5 o'clock. Reminder to bring layers because it can get chilly. Our guest preacher today is Carol Anne Fusco, a native Brooklynite who lived in Maine for 11 years, during which time she served on the worship committee of the Portland Swedenborgian Church. In 1999, she drove across country to attend Matthew Fox's graduate school, then in Oakland, California, from which she received a master's degree upon completion of her thesis project, Creating Community Through Co-Creating Ritual.
The opening hymn is in the Silver Book, 389. Jacqueline will sing it, and everyone please join her. And then Carol Anne will lead it in round, So this side sing with Jacqueline, and that side sing with Carol Anne. I'll play it first. Please stand if you're able.
Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit, draw near. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit, draw near. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit, draw near. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit, draw near.
There once was an old Jewish man, and all he ever did in his spare time was go to the edge of the village and plant fig trees. People would ask him, "Why are you planting fig trees? You are going to die before you can eat any of the fruit that they produce." But he said, "I have spent so many hours sitting under fig trees and eating their fruit. Those trees were planted by others. Why shouldn't I make sure that others will know the enjoyment that I had?"
Praise God, the love we all may share. Praise God, the beauty everywhere. Praise God, the hope of good to be. Praise God, the truth that makes us free. Amen.
Good morning, Northbrae. It's good to see you all. Would you please stand as you are doing now and join me in the Lord's Prayer? I suggest we read it a little slower this week than last week, just so we can grasp a little of the meaning as we go. O Creator of all matter, whose sacred name is unknowable, may we build a community on earth in accordance with your intentions for the universe. Grant us the ability to feed ourselves sustainably and overlook our faults, as we must learn to overlook the faults of others. Lead us away from all that is unwholesome and divert us from all that is destructive. For all creation, its power, its beauty are yours from infinity to infinity. Amen.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea. Move in our hands, giving life the shape of justice.
We will take a little pause here, a moment of meditation in silence. Please join me. Dear Lord, please enlighten what's dark in us, strengthen what's weak in us, mend what's broken in us, bind what's bruised in us, heal what's sick in us, and revive our peace and love. Healer of our every ill, light of each tomorrow, give us peace beyond our fear and hope beyond our sorrow.
As you go through life, you'll see there is so much that we don't understand. And the only thing we know is things don't always go the way we planned. But you'll see every day that we'll never turn away when it seems all your dreams come undone. We will stand by your side, filled with hope and filled with pride. We are more than we are one. Family, family, we are one. Family, family, we are one. If there's so much I must be, can I still just be me, the way I am? Can I trust in my own heart, or am I just one part of some big plan? Even those who are gone are with us as we go on. Your journey has only begun. Tears of pain, tears of joy, one thing nothing can destroy is our pride. Deep inside we are one. Family, family, we are one. Family, family, we are one. We are one, you and I. We are like the earth and sky, one family under the sun. All the wisdom to lead, all the courage that you need, you will find when you see we are one. Family, family, we are one. Family, family, we are one.
Today's secret story is the parable of the spoons. An old woman is nearing the end of her life. As she closes her eyes one night, she sees a bright light and is transported to another realm. She doesn't pass away just then. Instead, she returns to the living world to find her family gathered at her bedside. She smiles and whispers to her children, I have seen the great hereafter. The great whereafter, her son asks. Heaven and hell. I have seen them both. The old woman goes on to explain, I came upon a door, and behind it was hell. What I saw there confounded me. There was a dining hall filled with rows of tables, each table teeming with a magnificent feast. It looked and smelled delicious, yet the people seated around the tables were emaciated and sickly, moaning with hunger. As I came closer, I realized that each person held a very long spoon. With it, they could reach the feast, but the spoon was too long. Though they tried and tried to reach the feast, although they tried and tried again, they couldn't bring the nourishment to their mouth. In spite of the abundance before them, they were starving. She continued, I left this horrid place and opened a new door, one that led to heaven. Inside, I was surprised to see that very same scene before my eyes, a dining hall filled with rows upon row of tables, and those tables a marvelous feast. But instead of moaning with hunger, the people around the tables were sitting contentedly, talking with one another, sated from the abundance before them. Like those in hell, these people were holding very long spoons. As I watched, a woman dipped her spoon into a bowl of stew before her, but rather than struggling to feed herself, she extended the spoon out and fed the man seated across from her. This person, now satisfied and no longer hungry, gave thanks and returned the favor, leaning across the table to feed the woman. I suddenly understood the difference between heaven and hell, the old woman said to her family. It is neither the qualities of the place nor the abundance of the resources, but the way people treat each other. In hell, we are selfish. We would rather go hungry than give people we don't care for the pleasure of eating. But in heaven, we feed each other. We put trust in those around us and never go hungry.
It's time to share an offering in support of our community. Tending the Spark is in your bulletin. Jacqueline will sing it once. I will add some harmony. And then if you want to sing along the third time, or all along, you can just sing, tending the spark, tending the spark, tending the spark, and you can sing along that way.
And we will care for each other as the world around us unravels, and we will tend to the spark of hope that lives within our grieving hearts, and we are here now in this present moment, lifting our voices and hearts. And we are here now, we have come together, we are tending the spark of hope. Oh, oh, may it grow. Oh, and we will care for each other as the world around us unravels, and we will tend to the spark of hope that lives within our grieving hearts, and we will hear now in this present moment, lifting our voices and hearts. And we are here now, we have come together, we are tending the spark of hope. Oh, may it grow. And we will care for each other as the world around us unravels, and we will tend to the spark of hope that lives within our grieving hearts. And we are here now in this present moment, lifting our voices and hearts. And we are here now, we have come together, we are tending the spark of hope. Oh, may it grow. Oh, and we will care for each other.
The first reading today is from Corinthians, and the subject is love. If I speak in the tongues of mortals and of angels, but have not love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith so as to remove mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give away all my possessions, and if I hand over my body to be burned, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Love is patient, love is kind, love is not envious or boastful or arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, and endures all things. Love never ends. Prophecies will come to an end. Tongues will cease. Knowledge will come to an end. We know in part, we prophesy in part. But when the complete comes, the partial will come to an end. When I was a child, I spoke like a child. I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child. When I became an adult, I put an end to childish ways. Now we see in a mirror, in a riddle. Then we will see face to face. Now I know in part, but then I will know fully. Now faith, hope, and love abide, these three, and the greatest of these is love. Black Elk was a medicine man, a religious leader of the Sioux people. He was born some 200 years ago, and these are his words on the sacred hoop, a religious symbol of the Sioux people. I was standing on the highest mountain of them all, and round beneath me was the whole hoop of the world. And while I stood there, I saw more than I can tell, and I understood more than I saw. For I was seeing in a sacred manner the shapes of all things in the Spirit, and the shapes as they must live together like one being. And I saw that the sacred hoop of my people was one of many hoops that make one circle wide as daylight and starlight. And in the center grew one mighty flowering tree to shelter all the children of one mother and one father. And I saw that it was holy. Amen.
Good morning. My sermon title is The Beloved Community, and I noticed that when the bulletin was first printed, someone had added church, the beloved church community, and it probably still is in the Zoom one. And I asked them to take that out, because though I will talk about this church, my topic is beyond that, is wider than that. And you'll see what I mean. So what do I mean by the beloved community? Let me tell you a story. When I lived in Maine, I was married to a man, not my current husband. I was married to my first husband, who was a contractor. He had his own building company called Solar Design and Construction. And he designed and built passive solar homes. And one of the ways contractors get business is to go to home shows, where contractors, floor people, people who sell shower curtains, people who sell anything that has to do with a home will rent booths in the Portland Coliseum, most often is where it happened, and ply their wares. So my husband Tom got a booth numerous years in the Portland Coliseum, and I would go with him, and he would have 3 tables laid out, and he had these books filled with photographs of houses that he had designed and built. And he had brochures, beautiful brochures that be laid out and fanned out in a lovely fashion, and have business cards also fanned out. And the way things seem to work in the world is that when people go through something, they go in waves. One wave will go through, there'll be a lull, and then the next wave will start. And my job was I would stand outside the booth and just kind of watch, and after each wave went through, I would go through and I would take all the books of photographs and turn them back to the first page, and I would take all the brochures and fan them out nicely again and put the business cards nice and pick up the coffee cups and trash that people had left on the tables. Then we went to the Common Ground Fair, which is a fair that is put on by MOFGA, the Maine Organic Farmers and Growers Association. And because it seemed like a good idea, if you're going to build passive solar homes, that's a great place to look for people who'd be interested in that. So we went for the first time, and I stood outside the booth, and I watched as the first wave went through, and the next wave, and the next wave. And as each wave went through, people would turn the books, when they were done, back to the first page, leave the brochures looking nice, leave the business cards, and they'd pick up their coffee cups and their trash, and they'd leave the booth. Yeah. This didn't happen once or twice. It happened all day. And I said to myself, these people are operating out of a different paradigm than most of the culture. Certainly a different paradigm than the people who went to the Portland Coliseum. Now, the fig tree story that we began the service with. This man was gonna not be around when these little saplings grew up. He was never going to enjoy the fruit of these trees. He wasn't gonna sit under them. But he wanted to pass on what had meant so much to him because other people had given it to him. When I came out to California and I was in Matthew Fox's graduate school, one of my teachers was this amazing woman. Her name was Sister Jose Habde. And Sister Jose was a Franciscan nun and a Seneca elder. And just to give you a sense of who she was a very outrageous character. She would wear these gorgeous long skirts. She had two, she said, so she could change on and off and wash one when she wasn't wearing it. She lived a very simple life, but she also traveled all over and spoke. And she would wear these beautiful skirts, and she would say, whenever you go to church, whenever you go to a circle, whenever you go to anything that is honoring the divine, you should dress up because you should really dress up for God. And another story we heard about her was that she was going to share a stage with the Dalai Lama in Chicago because they were both going to be speaking on compassion. And the way that she greeted him when she first met him is she walked up to him and she said, "Well, hello, Dolly." That's how she talked. It's a pretty accurate representation. And the Dalai Lama, I don't know if he got the cultural reference or not, but he just thought it was hysterically funny. So one of the very first things that Sister Jose said to us was she was telling us about how she asked us a question, actually. She said, when you go to the bathroom and you use the last of the toilet paper, what do? If you're in somebody's home or if you're in a public place and there's other rolls easily available within your sight, what do? Do you just walk out and leave it the way it was, or do you replace the roll? She wanted us to think about what we owe each other. And she wanted us, over and over again, she would tell stories, all to the point of, we are all connected. We are all in this together. In the parable of the spoons, it's really easy to see the point of the story. In heaven, we feed each other. Think about some of the things that are going on in the world today. Another story. I'm a storyteller, so I have to do a sermon in stories. My husband and I had an opportunity to go to Bhutan. We've been there twice, actually, because we really loved it and wanted to go back again. And Bhutan, if you don't know, is a little country in Asia. It's got India underneath it and China with Tibet right over it. And it's landlocked. It has magnificent rivers, but no access to the ocean. And it's a devoutly Buddhist country. And it felt wonderful to be there. It was really palpable to me that we were in a culture where compassion is a foundational value. And the second time we were going there, we were on the little plane that was going from Thailand to Paro, where the airport in Bhutan is. We were on Druk Air, which is their national airline. And Moose was looking out the window, taking photographs, and next to me on my other side was a young Bhutanese man. Now, one of the things about Bhutan is that most people under a certain age are bilingual. A lot of them are very fluent in English. So he just started talking to me. And it was just a wonderful conversation. He was telling me about how they were flying back to Bhutan. He and his wife had been in Australia for 2 years, and she was finishing her graduate degree. Yes, we hear you, dogs. And he was working. And before they went back home, what they wanted to do was they took her family and her little sister and his mother and his brother, and they flew them, everybody went to Bali together. And when they were there, he was telling me about this coffee. They went to this plantation, and they heard all about this coffee that's the most expensive coffee in the world. I won't even tell you why it is, but it's people pay a lot of money for this particular coffee that has a particular process that it goes through. Yeah, my husband knows what it is, so I knew it later. I'll tell you about it later. Anyway, so I asked him how his time in Australia was, and he said he loved the beaches. Remember, most people in Bhutan have never seen the ocean. He loved the beaches in Australia. And he was also saying that he could make more money in a week in Australia than he could make in a year in Bhutan. So I asked him, so why are you going back to Bhutan? And he said, I miss the kindness. I miss the kindness. One of the things about Bhutan that you may or may not know is when the fourth king created a constitutional monarchy, it had been an absolute monarchy, and he wisely turned it into a democracy. He also, wait, I have to figure out where I was going with this. I was going somewhere. Oh, yeah. He also instituted caring for the earth, the natural environment there, and improving the standard of living of people there, gradually, slowly, so they wouldn't get overrun with technology or with the Western world. And also, it'll come to me in a minute. It's not coming, so maybe I'll go on. It will come back to me later. But it was really good. Well, let's see. He did miss the kindness, yeah. It's a place where, oh yes, thank you. Okay. Instead of having the marker for progress in his country being gross national product, as it is here and probably most of the Western world and probably Asia at this point too, their marker for progress was gross national happiness. Yeah. So what do all of these stories have in common? What do all these places have in common? You know, in our culture, we're so used to what's in it for me. Look out for number one. You know, I've got mine, I don't care about you. But all of these places and cultures are asking, what's in it for us? And not just my family, my tribe, my church, my community, the human race, but also the critters, the fish in the sea, the trees, the planet. What's in it for us? There were the two people, a sociologist and a psychologist, who in 2000 wrote this book called The Cultural Creatives. And it was about, I think the subtitle was How 50 Million People Are Changing the World. And the way they defined cultural creatives, they listed all these different traits, but what it kind of comes down to is that in many ways, they espoused what our culture thinks of as women's values. Caring about each other, taking care of other people, taking care of the planet. Basically, seeking to create a life that, as in that song, For Everyone Born, A Place at the Table, seeking to create a world in which everybody who is born has a place at the table. You know, it's always interesting to me when I get a lot of political emails and you have to like send things to your senators or your representatives, and it's so interesting to me whenever I run across a senator who has a whole list of different topics, and somewhere at the bottom there's women or women's issues, as if we were not more than half of the human race, as if we need a special category. Women's issues should be everyone's issues. How do we care for each other? You know, one of the things you might notice, we printed the words to simple gifts in the bulletin, and one of the reasons I really wanted them printed is that the last verse traditionally says it's more blessed to give than to receive, and I don't think that's right. I think it's as blessed to give as to receive, because if everybody's giving and nobody's receiving, the circle never gets completed. And also, it's kind of a, you know, we are the good people, we give and give and give, and then there's the takers who take and take and take, and it's a cycle. It's a cycle. In order for somebody to give, somebody has to be willing to graciously receive. So, what do we do with all this information? What do we do with the idea of a beloved community? Well, you know, in this last year, I found myself thinking about redwood trees. Redwood trees, you know, they're really, really tall coastal redwoods. They have very shallow roots, and you wonder, how does something that tall stay up? You know, how come they don't all fall down when there's a great wind? And one of the things I learned about them is because even though the roots are shallow, they interpenetrate. Redwood trees are a community, and they support each other. And then I found myself thinking about this last year during the pandemic. You know, you can't see the roots are underground. Well, we couldn't see our connections on a global scale, but because of the pandemic, we started Zooming. We started calling more. I know I've talked more to my family in this past year than I had previously. We have friends who live far away. We've been Zooming with them almost every other weekend. And there have been communities that have grown up. There is a political organization called Avaaz, A-V-A-A-Z, and that word is a romanization of a number of words in different cultures that all mean voice. And the last time I checked, there were 68,969,000 members. The last time I read about it, which was like several months ago, there were 40 million. It's growing exponentially. And what they do is basically, it's kind of the cultural creatives agenda. It's looking for a way to create a world where everybody has a place at the table. and values that support the human community and the planet and all the critters are the ones that will prevail. I went on every Friday since last March. The Labyrinth Society has been putting on a Finger Labyrinth Walk. People from all over the world show up to this. I have made friends over the Finger Labyrinth Walk and doing workshops and talking with people. There is a woman in the Finger Labyrinth community who lives in a red state. She moved to a community where she thought, before the pandemic, where she thought she was able to work remotely, and it was a beautiful place with lots of nature. And then the pandemic hit, and she realized how isolated she was. And she would tell us about how she would go out for a walk or look out her window, and there'd be these trucks with, gun racks on them, and people with Trump blazoned across their cars and on their lawn signs, and she would feel she said she felt terrified a lot of the time. And she came to the Finger Labyrinth walks on Zoom to find community and to know she was not alone. And I think of my own life, and there are a lot of beloved communities that I have in my life. I once did this little exercise where I wrote down what they were, and then I connected them all up and looked at it, and it was like this beautiful web. I ask you, think in your life, how many beloved communities do you have in your life? How many groups are you a part of where people care for each other? And I bet you probably, if you start listing them, have more than you would initially think. For me, it's important to get recharged and inspired. And whenever I'm going to do something like a talk like this, I always kind of go for a walk and ask myself the question, why am I doing this? Why is this the thing I'm speaking about? And I realized it's because, was it November? I thought, finally, we're going to be on a good road. And now we're having all these difficulties, and it feels like our country is even more divided than it was, if that's possible. And sometimes I get really discouraged. And that's when I really need to check in with the beloved community. And my husband and I go to something called Song Village, and the song, Tending the Spark, that comes from a woman named Heather Houston. And she wrote that, and I met her at Song Village. She's one of the leaders there. And she wrote that several years ago in response to the California wildfires that destroyed places like Chico and Paradise, those places, if you can remember back, the horrific fires. And there were people in the Song Village community who lost their homes. And she wrote that song in response to that. And then the pandemic hit, and it's become sort of a theme song for Song Village. We sang it at the closing circle, and myself and I know many other people sort of cried our way through it, and we will care for each other as the world around us unravels. And we will tend to the spark of hope that lives within our grieving hearts, because we're here now in this present moment, lifting our voices and hearts. We're here. Now we have come together. We are tending the spark of hope that it may grow. So I feel really recharged by that community because it is a beloved community. It's a wonderful, safe, loving place. People who didn't know each other 5 years ago when it started look forward to seeing each other. Some of us only see each other once a year, but it's like no time has passed. There's another song that a woman named Debbie Nargi Brown wrote that I find really helpful to me. It goes, "Do not be dismayed by the brokenness in the world. All things break and all things can be mended, not by time as they say, but with intention. So go, live intentionally. So go, love extravagantly. So go, love unconditionally. The broken world waits in darkness for the light that is you. You and me and all of us. The broken world waits in darkness for the light that is us. You know, that the line, when I listened to Jacqueline sing that song, We Are One, so beautifully, one of the lines that stood out for me is, you know, the one line about things have not gone as we have planned. But what is there to do? But live a life as intentionally and lovingly as we each can. So I said I was going to talk about this church community, so I will. I would not be standing here today, I think it's a good bet, I would not be standing here today if it wasn't for Zoom. Many people don't find this hard to believe, but I'm an introvert, and I'm shy. And because of Zoom, because of seeing all of you, and listening to you week after week, and because it was on Zoom, I could kind of like come there and hide out. I got to know you. In fact, I remember recently a parishioner, a longtime parishioner, has said to some of us were talking and said to us that because of Zoom, she got to know people better that she hadn't before. You know, because when people used to go to like coffee hour, you'd like hang out with the people that you knew. Or if you were a new person, you'd kind of like either skip coffee hour altogether or, you know, stand there and kind of like hope somebody will talk to you if you're a shy person. Some people just go up and say, hi. That's not me. But because I got to know you, seeing all of your faces, I thought, I like this church. These are good people. I like the fact that they do stuff in the community that helps other people that beyond their own church community. I like the way they are with each other. I went to the annual meeting, not because I could vote, because I couldn't. I'm not an official member, though I suspect that's probably going to happen soon. But I was, you know, I've been involved with churches for a long time. And I was really impressed with the annual meeting. I was impressed with how well run it was and how people were with each other. I thought, I want to be part of this church. I like this church. I look at these windows, and you know, if it were happening today, of course there would be like a lot more women, like maybe 50%. But there'd also be people like, I like the fact that it's not all religious people. Like, I think if this were being done today, George Floyd, who I think is a great soul, Matthew Shepard, another great soul, the gay young man who was murdered in Laramie, who woke people's minds up. It's sad that something like those things have to happen. Breonna Taylor, say her name, Breonna Taylor. That those are the kinds of people that I think this church would honor. The people, the great souls that have come to us to wake us up. And to those of you, hi everybody out there in YouTube land, one of the things that I was really impressed with, I haven't been here for all of it, but I've come intermittently, and I have seen what the people who are putting this together for YouTube have been trying to do, and they have been working really hard. It's because those of you out there in YouTube land, it's because we love you. Because we don't want to lose the people who are far away friends, who live in other states, or who can't physically get here. This speaks to that this is a beloved community. And and like Black Elk, I look out and I see that it is holy. And what I really want for what I really want is to have the recognition that we, here in this room, are part of an interconnecting circle of the beloved community that is worldwide. Because I think that what we think and feel and put our intention towards really does make a difference in the world. So to keep in mind that we are a part of something much greater, and that even though we may not be a mega church, what we do intentionally, extravagantly, and unconditionally sends out a note into the universe that resonates with all the other people who have these values. One of the hallmarks also of the cultural creatives that I didn't mention before is that they tend to think that they're the only one. They tend to think that the vast amount of humanity is not thinking this way, and it's not true. You're not going to read about it on Fox, you're not going to hear about it on Fox News, you're not going to read it about in the newspapers, you're not even going to see it on CNN or MSNBC or in the internet, but there are millions of us. And as Margaret Mead said, paraphrasing her, she said, one person can change the world. One person, one community, one way of being can reverberate. Years ago, I learned about a community in Scotland called Findhorn. And Findhorn was founded by some people who had great jobs at a hotel, and then they lost their jobs through no fault of their own. They didn't even know why they were being fired. And they found a trailer park and they moved into it. But they were people of goodwill and of faith. So they started praying and meditating. And one woman started getting messages from the nature spirits. And there's a wonderful book called The Magic of Findhorn that talks about this. And when I first heard about this, I remember thinking, oh my God, you can be a Christian and a pagan. You can pray to the divine in a Christian form, because at that point in time, I still identified. Now I'm a devout eclectic. But you can. There are interpenetrating ways of being in our world. And one of their claims to fame is they managed to grow enormous cabbages and roses in sand, because the nature spirits would give them directions specific about how to amend the soil. And they didn't have any money, but they'd be told to get some hay, and they'd be driving around, and some truck in front of them would have hay bales, and one of the hay bales would fall off. Things like that happened because they kept going to spirit, asking for help. So that's what I want to leave you with. The thought that we are not alone. In that song, We Are One, they talk about how those who have gone before us have not left. They're still here. The ancestors are still here. The ancestors, the saints, the spirits, the wise ones, the divine, the angels. Let's keep asking for help whenever we have a problem, because operators are standing by. Thank you.
'Tis the gift to be simple, 'tis the gift to be free, 'tis the gift to come down where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in the place just right.
My benediction is another song that I learned at Song Village by a wonderful duo called Mamuse, amazing singer-songwriters and song leaders. It goes like this. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we rise. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. Go now and lead in love.
Say my peace I